Good evening and welcome to the regular board meeting for January 27th, 2020 for the Akron Public Schools Board of Education. We will call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Akbar. Here. Mr. Alexander.
Present.
Ms. Autry.
Here.
Mr. Bravo.
Here.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Here.
Mrs. McKittrick.
Here.
Thank you. And our student board member, Chandler Forshee from Kenmore Garfield.
And yes, welcome. And Chandler is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight, so if we could all please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. We will, at this time, then open it up for community and school reflections. Would anyone like to start?
First, real fun thing that Mr. Alexander and I got to do on Friday. Two of our student board members had told us at our Christmas gathering, our holiday gathering, that they were playing each other in basketball. The Firestone Falcons were taking on the Ellet Orangemen at Firestone, so we got to go over and watch them in friendly competition, and that was a lot of fun. It was they were very excited that we were coming. And I just had a chat with Chandler. He is competing in the City Series Championship for wrestling. So if anyone is available for that, we can go and support him as well. It's almost as good as having a child in a sport. It was really fun. We were very excited. And then Saturday was our 64th annual, I think, science fair, which I did the math on that and figured out that my parents would have been in 8th grade and 10th grade when the very first one was held. So it's quite a legacy for Akron Public Schools, and the students were so excited. I particularly noticed that the STEM middle school team was really rooting for each other. Every time somebody's score was announced, great cheers went up from the crowd. As always, Ms. Lassa does a fantastic job. I always tease her. I call her a force of nature, and she truly is. She calls it her wedding every year. It's like she puts together a wedding. She does such a fantastic job of not only honoring all the hard work of our students, but of the staff members that give so freely of their time for that event. So those were two of the highlights.
Great, thank you. Ms. McKittrick?
Of the few things that I attended over the last couple of weeks, probably the most memorable was the Black Card Project at Firestone High School. It was created and performed by a Firestone graduate, and it was a coming-of-age story and explored the issues of identity, belonging, cultural identity specific to the Black cultural experience, and it left with a message of hope. But it was thought-provoking, and I've thought about it every day since. So it was very well done.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs.
So
Autry?
speaking of wrestling, I decided to attend the higher middle school versus Bookville Middle School wrestling match. One of my motivating reasons was because I was babysitting my 1-year-old granddaughter, and she's very rambunctious. So I'm like, she needs exposure to this wrestling. She might want to be a future wrestler. So, and it was actually nice because there were actually several young ladies who wrestled in the match. So, and she was very intrigued. So we might have a future wrestler. But it was just nice to see the families out. A lot of folks tend to focus on the basketball and the football, but to go to a wrestling match, it was just kind of cool to see those families and the coaches. And then also another sporting event that I attended was the Kenmore Garfield versus Bookville girls basketball game. Quite a rivalry is going on. In fact, they'll probably meet each other, I believe, in the City Series Championship coming up. So, but it was very well attended, and I just think it's important that we acknowledge the coaches who do such a great job with our scholar athletes in the district and how much value sports brings to education. So it's just nice to see that.
Definitely, thank you. Mr. Akbar, Dr. Akbar.
Two that I'll mention is a few of us actually got the chance to go to the AAA graduation, which was really inspiring to see not only the young people but also their families, and hearing some of the things that they want to do next really was pretty awesome. And on to that, kind of appendage onto that, a few of us also went to Project Learn's graduation, and that there was a young lady who told her story of being from another country and coming here, barely knowing how to speak English, and then just triumphing. It actually made me tear up. So that graduation was really good, and it really looked at, and I talked to Patrick about this. It made me think about, what can we do to at least honor those graduates as well.
I found another person I'm not allowed to sit next to when there are emotional
no.
things going on. Val did not help me out one bit. Anyway, Mr. Hall, Dr. Hall.
Speaking of wrestling, I actually lost to the kid from Higher when I was at Roswell Kent, so I never forgot that. I'm not a big fan of those Higher kids. I'm just kidding. Still bitter after all these years. I would echo Dr. Akbar's comments as related to the AAA graduation, Project Learn. Those were, I think oftentimes people take for granted high school graduation, and it was just, frankly, it was awesome, to see the families that were out supporting, just hooting and hollering. And I love the fact that the MC said, when your kid comes up, please yell, please cheer, please scream, And I love the fact that they waited until after each kid had all his screaming and yelling out before they called the next kid, right? So they each had their time to shine, and so. But I was going to reference specifically the STEM high school. So I was there last week, and actually I'll be back again this Friday. The seniors there are presenting on their capstone projects. And I got to tell you, the ideas these kids have for apps, and I won't go through all of them, but but apps around helping you lose weight by tracking your activity versus your caloric intake. And you might say, I know apps like that already exist, right? But we all know that in any market, there's room for one more competitor, right? And but the most intriguing thing about it to me was the number of students that had apps that had as their sort of raison d'etre addressing the many social issues that kids suffer from in school, right? So we're dealing with in school, and so it's apps around helping students get access to therapy, apps around helping students get in touch with other students that have similar social or emotional needs or issues. So I was really taken aback by how thoughtful they were in their apps design. And by the way, these are their capstone projects, right? And so they're only like at sort of phase 3 of like a 5-step process. So I'll keep going back and giving feedback along with other folks in the community. And to me, I'm looking forward to seeing how these projects continue to evolve over time. So, not for the first time, I kept saying, how did I ever graduate from high school? I'm just not as smart as these kids are. So it was really humbling for me as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Forshee.
So, hello, my name is Chandler Forshee.
Can you also maybe pull your microphone down?
Oh, okay, yeah, that will work.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
Thank you.
I am a junior at Kenmore Garfield High School, and the career pathway that I'm a part of is information technology. Building relationships with the students and the community is one of the top goals of Kenmore Garfield. Each 9th grade teacher selected 6 or more students to mentor. Teachers mentor students before, during, and after school at least once a week. As a result of this mentoring, there is a 10% increase of the number of freshmen on track to graduate with 6 or more credits. This is all organized by Mr. Nicolino, our freshman academy principal. Monthly at Kenmore Garfield, each of our 2 career academies celebrates 20 students that expresses at least one of the values of a portrait of a graduate. The 5 areas of a portrait of a graduate are social skills, contributes to society, strong habits of mind, real-world skills, and that the nominees have a plan for their future. The students are invited to an academy team meeting. At the meeting, students are greeted with applause, their pictures taken with their nominating teacher, and the students will receive their awards for their core values and just kind of be acknowledged for it. The pictures and a brief description of the students' core values are displayed in our main hallway showcase. Students will also be celebrated at an upcoming PEP assembly. These events are all coordinated by Academy coach Mr. Clayton Cundiff. 2 of our 3 experiential learning days, or ELD days, took place on October 10th and November 14th. 13 Kenmore Garfield business partners hosted 302 students from 8 career pathways over the ELD days. With most students being in their first year of their chosen career pathway, the ELD experiences were focused on industry field trips. Industry field trips provide real-life, hands-on experience to students related to their pathway. These field trips are designed to help students understand and gain knowledge of the world of work, explore their pathway field, and help connect the school to work. I myself did go on a field trip to First Energy, and the first impression was as soon as we got in the door, we got a very kind of in-depth detail description of how their security works even. They told us all the kind of the inner workings of how they kind of run things. Throughout the day, we then moved on to conference rooms where we learned about the way big businesses communicate through video conference. We were then led through simulated business meetings, workshops, told about internships, and even job opportunities that could come our way. These ELD days were coordinated by Academy coach Mr. Clayton Cundiff. The businesses that made this all possible are First Energy, Kyocera, SGS Tools, Esterol, Americhem, Fastenal, Summit County, Associated General Contractors, Home Builders Association of Summit County, Arden Courts, Concordia at Sumner, U.S. Foods, Acme Fresh Market, and Stark State. These all sponsor our school and their academies, so we are very privileged with that. Moving on, this past Saturday, January the 25th, my team and I participated in the Green High School wrestling tournament called the Bulldog Brawl. It was an open team event that consisted of 25 high school teams from Ohio. There were a few different pools per weight class of about like 5 or 6 people just to kind of split things up, kind of speed up this tournament. There were 5 rounds, and every wrestler would wrestle everyone in their weight class, or everyone in their pool in their weight class, unless someone was to forfeit. Leading on to the championship round, where only the top 6 of each weight class, which consisted of about 25 to 28 people apiece, were able to compete. If you didn't make it in the top 6, you didn't even have a chance for that. Kenmore Garfield did have 2 wrestlers place this weekend, which were Lamont Vinson, who got 5th place at the 145-pound weight class, and Jace Palmer, who was the MVP of the team on Saturday by far. He placed 4th at the 132-pound weight class, and it was definitely his best day I've ever seen in 2 years from him. I'm really proud of him for that. I also did have a pin that I was quite proud of in the 113-pound weight class. And everything that we were able to accomplish was under the direction and leadership of our head coach, Kevin Clarity, and also our 2 assistant coaches would put in a lot of work, Doug Miller and Joseph Thomas Sr., also known as Coach T, everyone calls him that. Starting on February 11th, I'll be working at my high school as a student helper for custodial work, and I'll be able to start making money and saving up. My boss, Mr. Keith Harvey, the head custodian, back when he was in high school, he was also a student helper, and that's how he started off getting into the career and just like getting into the work mindset. My brother, who graduated from Kenmore Garfield, was also a student helper. He's now in college. He has a steady job he's held for months, and so I'm excited to start. I do believe that Akron Public Schools' ability to develop good relationships with not only the students, but the community members impact schools, which leads to further support from the community for our students. Knowing different people's circumstances, such as students, parents, community leaders, and teachers. And their learning and their different ways of doing things in everyday life can help us as a school system adapt to the students and improve their learning experiences. This will lead to a better community participation and a better community as a whole.
Good. Thank you. Fantastic report. And you're an 11th grader, right? I'm starting to wonder how I graduated. Wow. Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Anyone else for community or school reflections? All right, hearing none, we will move on to requests to address the board. We do have 2 requests to address the board this evening, and we're going to start with Ms. Lisa King, who is the head of our Summit Metro Parks, and she is here on behalf of citizens for Metro Parks today.
I have to applaud this young man. You are quite impressive. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to speak with you just for a few minutes to bring you information about the Metro Parks and our upcoming levy. First, I want to share that Metro Parks has been around a long time. We're going to celebrate our centennial next year, and so after 99 years, I think I can confidently say the Metro Parks are one of the things that make Summit County a very special place to live. Pardon me, for those that need just a quick glimpse at what we are, we manage 14,000 acres, we've got 16 parks, we manage 150 miles of trail, and 66 miles of those are multi-purpose trails. So for wheels, bikes, strollers, it's more of a level surface for people of all abilities. We've got lots of events that go on every year. Our hiking spree, we have lots of folks that enjoy that tradition, and we also now have a spree for all, which is for people of all abilities. I want to talk about our levy a little bit. We're going to be on the ballot on March 17th. We are at the end of our 7-year levy, and if you don't realize, a lot of people may not, that you all support us. A small piece of your property taxes go to support us, and that's 90% of our budget. Pardon me. I guess what you need to know are things such as this. Our last levy was in 2013, and it was a renewal. Prior to that, in 2006, was a small increase. We are again going to be asking for a small increase. In those 14 years, under the same money year after year, we've grown immensely. We've put on 5,000 acres. We've added 5 parks and have 50% more, I'm sorry, not 50% more, 25% more trails. But our visitation has also gone up, which we're very proud of. We've gone from 4 million to 5 million. And as much as I love that, it does take a toll on the park district. We want more people to enjoy us, but we want to be able to continue to bring the same level of excellence that we always have. So under the same funding for 14 years, that's the reason for the increase that we're going to be asking for on March 17th. What that looks like is everything is based on a $100,000 property value, but Akron properties, you're going to realize less than $1.50 per month increase to what you already pay. So that's what we're asking for this levy. So what I'd like to ask the board is if you are willing, we would love to have your endorsement. I do have a resolution for you to consider if you are willing, and if you would like to endorse personally, I have forms that I could give Mrs. Mansfield and she can share with you. But that we would be honored if you would be considering that.
And we do have a draft resolution for consideration by this board in support of the Summit Metro Parks levy issue that will appear on the March 2020 ballot. And I would entertain
I'd like
a
to
motion.
make a motion to accept, or to accept this resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the resolution of endorsement for the Summit Metro Parks levy funding ballot issue on the March 17, 2020 ballot. Any comments, questions, discussion?
assumption is that we're endorsing as a group, that we don't need to worry about endorsing personally then?
You don't have to, you may if you like.
Okay. I mean, would it add any value to be endorsed personally in addition to this?
I think that both have value. As a body has a value, and then the way that the citizens will use it is in those last 4 weeks in social media, the citizens will be thanking those who have endorsed. So some folks might see your name, that's meaningful. Folks will see the board's endorsement as a whole, and that's also meaningful.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just going to say, study after study shows that our metro parks are not just the jewel of Summit County. Our green space is incredibly valuable to our students and the relationships that we have for our students. The fact that it's all over, all around us is just an amazing asset to our community. When I have friends come visit from other metropolitan areas, they're blown away by the amount of green space that we have and the quality of our park system. So we're really blessed to have them.
Any other comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. Yes, absolutely. All right. As we keep moving, we do have another request to address the board. And it's Janich or Janich Yacheko. Yasesko. Janich or Janich Yasesko. Going once. Going twice. All right, we will continue to move on then with tonight's agenda, and if they show up and we have time, maybe we'll slot them in after they arrive. We are going to move into the recognitions portion of our agenda then this evening, and I'm going to ask for Jarrett Brantley to join me at the podium, please. It is with great pleasure tonight that we honor Bookdale CLC freshman Jarrett Brantley. Jarrett recently competed as a member of the Buzzer Beaters team at the Ohio Regional 2019 Tech Core Hack coding event that was held at the University of Akron on November 15th and 16th of 2019. And the Buzzer Beaters developed a computer application to collect ad revenue, which can then be donated to a charitable cause. Users of the application would collect smiles for their charity by reading the news. Jarrett, along with other winners, was honored at a ceremony at the Ohio State Capitol in Columbus. On December 11th, 2019, he received special recognition from Ohio House Representative and House Minority Leader Amelia Strong Sykes of House District 34, and also a senatorial citation from State Senator Vernon Sykes of District 26. Jarrett has been an Akron Public School student since kindergarten, starting at Schumacher and then on to Bookdale CLC in 7th grade. His mother, Kathy Mills Brantley, is an APS teacher at Krause Elementary School. Today, we are pleased to present this certificate to Jarrett. We're very proud of you, and we look forward to all of your future accomplishments.
I'm going to ask Chandler to join me for this since it's his school. We are going to recognize a group from the Kenmore Garfield, who did a Project Rise Harvest Dinner. You want to hold that? On November 19th, Project Rise hosted its 12th annual Harvest Dinner for families experiencing homelessness. For the third year at Kenmore Garfield High School, several business organizations provided activities, giveaways, and entertainment for 115 people in attendance. We want to make sure that we recognize a very important group. How do you say your name again, Cheryl? Merez. Oh, because it's so easy, that's why I can't say it. It's Cheryl Merez, the teacher at Kenmore Garfield, and her Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America student group, who went above and beyond to help make this event a success. The students here tonight are representing a much larger group of students who did all of the following. They took it upon themselves to have a fundraiser during their lunch hours to earn money to purchase the food for the Harvest Dinner. They prepared all the food under Teacher Merez's direction, which included 12 turkeys, stuffing, macaroni and cheese. I know you're getting hungry over there. Hang in there. Corn pudding, mashed potatoes and gravy, and sweet potatoes. The desserts were donated by several Kenmore Garfield teachers. They helped the Project Rise staff with setting up the dining room and cleaned everything up after the event. We want to congratulate these students and their teacher who unselfishly gave of their time and talents to provide a wonderful feast for the less fortunate. And we have a certificate here to appreciate them. They have all made us APS proud.
Yes, I'd like to introduce, I'm sorry, I'm wearing my coat. This is Yasmin Bell, integral part of everything. We had about 25 students that helped out that day. It was, the pictures are amazing. And we have Jalaisha Austin and Denasia Waters, and finally Cheryl Washington. And like I said, there were 22, 25 students helping out, along with a lot of the staff that came and carved turkeys at the last minute. It was an awesome day. It's really powerful to see the students in action. When you say do, they do, and it's amazing. So thank you.
And before everyone leaves, if you brought someone with you here tonight to support you, can you please introduce them? And then Jarrett, I'd like you to also have a chance to introduce who came with you tonight. So did anyone bring someone with them that they'd like to give a shout out to?
Project Rise staff transported the students to
Fantastic.
from Kenmore Garfield School after today. We went out to dinner and then brought them
Ooh,
here today. So
nice. Very nice.
I wanna
Well,
thank Amanda for that.
congratulations.
So we're going to get in front and get a picture so that Mr. Williamson has a good one.
Don't be shy.
Yes.
Be ready this time.
You can hold it. Oh, let them. How are we? Okay? Just smile.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Ready?
We're ready.
Sure? Ready. 1, 2, oh, there was no 3. That's good.
Oh, very good. Too really good.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Jarrett, can you also let us know who came with you tonight?
Okay. Up here, I'd like to welcome my mom, my dad, and my principal, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do you have the certificates or do Every year in January, we take just a moment to recognize, or I should say rather, OSBA takes a moment to recognize school board members for their service. And so we have a few certificates of appreciation that I am going to pass out to our board members today, but would like to let each of you know how much we appreciate your service. And on behalf of OSBA, Congratulations and thank you for all the work that you do. I'm going to pass these out individually later, but please know that we have a certificate for you today. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. We have no communications today. We are going to do approval of the meeting minutes. However, we do have one correction to the meeting minutes. We need to amend the meeting minutes to include the special education due process mediation agreement that was approved at the last board meeting. That was left out of the minutes. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve the minutes with that one correction.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the meeting minutes. We're doing both at the same time, right? For the organizational meeting for January 13th and the special board orientation from January 21st. We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
All right, superintendent's recommendations, personnel.
Yes, Mr. President. I have one item I would like to report is item 16.1. I regret to report the death of Miss Benita Faircane, a long-term substitute educational assistant and Braille transcriber, on January 12th, 2020. She was an employee of the Akron Board of Education for approximately 40 years. With that, I wish to recommend approval of the personnel recommendations presented in categories 5 through 16.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the personnel recommendations. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Yes,
I
ma'am.
just wanted to point out that I'm doing so under protest because Ms. Conley says she's going to
Yes.
be retiring, and we threatened to vote no on that, but we decided we would let her. She's been a fantastic principal at Akron Early College, and we're thrilled to see her go out on such a win with being a blue ribbon school like her predecessor as well. So huge congratulations to her, and thank you for her service, even though we hate to see her go.
Yes, thank you for that.
So a quick comment. I just wanted to say I'm happy to see the employment opportunities for students that I think was in item 15. So I'm a big fan of student employment. So thank you for including that.
So is Chandler.
I know.
Yeah.
I like that. So
Any other comments, questions, or discussions on the personnel items? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Okay.
Next, Mr. President, I wish to recommend that the board certify the list of high school graduates for 2019 under item 18.1.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to certify the list of graduates for 2019. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Next, Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the resolutions and motions presented in category 22.
All right, we have, we'll entertain a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on the resolutions and motions in the consent agenda. Are there any comments, questions, or discussions for the consent agenda?
I do have just a acknowledgement of all the donations that were received. Even just from regular everyday people, donated anywhere from $100 and up just to help support our schools. And just wanted to acknowledge that a lot of schools benefited. East Choir, Miller South, Krause, Robinson, Cyberling, all of those schools were able to benefit from the donations of everyday people. So I just wanted to thank those folks.
Thank you.
Just a reminder, too, that I love to point those out to people. Mr. Williamson puts those together into a nice presentation, usually the Tuesday after a board meeting, and shares it on social media. So it's a nice way for us to let others see that. And the more they see it, the more it seems to bring donations. So it is always great to point that out.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions, or discussion on the consent agenda items? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar.
Yes, abstain on 22.6.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall.
Aye.
Next, Mr. President, I wish to recommend approval of the business affairs recommendations presented in Category 24.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the business affairs recommendations. Are there any comments, questions, or discussions there? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mrs. McKittrick,
Yes.
Dr. Akbar,
Yes.
Mr. Alexander,
Yes.
Ms. Autry,
Yes.
Mr. Bravo,
Yes.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield.
Yes.
Superintendent's report?
No report this evening.
The only item I have for President's report, I was at some of the same events that you all attended. Had to also miss out on a few because I got sick. So thank you for giving me at least a nod at the graduation. We are going to, Dr. Akbar and I are going to meet later this week to at least begin the initial discussion around the retreat. So we'll be back to you with some information and then probably start lobbying some dates. And I believe Ms. Mansfield had suggested maybe we look at February. So I think that's the direction we'll be headed, but just wanted to let you know that was on our radar. Treasurer's report.
For tonight's report, I'd like to talk about the effects of Ed Choice Voucher Program. For your consideration tonight is a resolution that I know we have all participated in that discussion and editing of that resolution. Ohio has a very aggressive school voucher program, as you know, commonly called Ed Choice. It provides public tax dollars to pay tuition for students attending private school. This has been in place for the past decade or so, but recent legislation with the passage of a new biennium budget included some changes that potentially have catastrophic event on public education. We currently have around 1,700 students at a little bit more than $7 million transferred out of Akron Public Schools. The program started out as a way to provide alternative education for a local public school district or building that was considered a quote-unquote failing school. And we're going to come back to that quote in definition. The current Ed Choice Scholarship Program and expansion voucher amount for elementary school is $4,650, and the high school student is $6,000. On average, Akron Public Schools receives $4,800 from the state. So you can imagine when we transfer any 9 through 12 student, we are subsidizing that additional dollars above and beyond. So local property tax dollars are being used to fund those district-paid vouchers. Some would argue that when we go in front of the voting public to do operating levies, that our voting public is not endorsing and or agreeing to that subsidy for that transfer, which has been one of the major arguments. A growing number of students who have never been enrolled in Akron Public Schools are now qualifying as of next year. You've heard various media outlets, both radio, newspaper, talk and debate this. Tonight, as we began our board meeting, we received emails from amendments that are being proposed even now and late into the day. These will be hotly debated up and through the remainder of this week. February 1st starts the application process for next school year, and anecdotally, maybe probably more than anecdotally, I know we have talked publicly about one institution in specific that could have an additional 200 students transfer that have never attended Akron Public Schools that could take the full $6,000 deduction. That's just one institution. So in your resolution tonight, the main components will be the Ed Choice expansion. As soon as we pass that tonight and tomorrow, I will forward that to our state representatives. I may hand deliver them for testimony that I'm going to be providing later in the week for House Bill 305. So I plan to walk those around the State House. We do anticipate some amendment to House Bill 166 to put a stay on this application process. But we really do appreciate your conversation and your presence and encouragement in bringing this resolution forward to tonight. Thank you.
What kind of questions do we have for Mr. Pendleton? Comments, questions, or discussion?
Well, man, so I think it is important to sort of quantify what that means, right? So we say like $7 million, so for example, in looking at, sort of the 5-year forecast, that after this year we're what, 1.2 million in the hole, 1.5 million in the hole, right? So that $7 million is the difference between being in the black versus being in the red, and so these are not insignificant dollars we're talking about. They matter, to whether or not our budget, is solid or not, right? I mean, so
Absolutely.
that over 5 years, you're talking $35 million over 5 years, so these are very consequential, dollars and decisions that are being made at the state level. That it's important to note that the local school board has no control over, whatsoever, right? So I think in the community we get asked questions about it. This is there's a clear line of demarcation between what the state does and versus what the local board can actually do.
Right.
So,
Very well said.
Thank you. Ms. Mansfield?
There's also some question from the very beginning of how this was put into the budget. It was done very last minute. It was done often in many cases where the legislators didn't even know that it was being put in. That part's disturbing enough. But then you get into the fact where we're all educators here. We believe in education. We believe in public education. It doesn't mean that private education is our enemy, but what it does mean is that for the most part, our private schools can cherry pick who they need and who they want. And we take everyone. Come as you are, and you're an Akron Public School student, and we're happy to have you. But private schools don't have to take students with disabilities. They don't have to take students with IEPs. They don't have to take, and what'll end up happening, and what has happened already in so many cases is, you've got a school that's marked as failing by a report card that we know is not perfect. I'll be nice today, is not perfect, and you take off the top and then wonder why it's not going to turn this trajectory around for the public education system. Let's just put it that way, because my personal opinion is the biggest indicator of a child's success is mostly parent involvement and parent dedication as well, and family involvement in those students' lives. And the students that are going to apply for these and the students that are going to move on are going to be parents who have the means to at least think about that, right? They have the time to fill out an application. They have the wherewithal to do so. And we want those students to stay with us. We want to have those parents continue to raise the bar, and those students continue to raise the bar in our public school system.
Thank you.
I just want to say something as well. When you talk about these dollars leaving our district, how does that affect our students and what we can do for the students? That is the most important thing. When those dollars leave here and they go to another school district, plus the additional dollars that we may have to pay that comes out of our budgets to go to these other school districts, how does that affect our kids and what we can do for our students? So we need to make sure that we understand that what we're here in the business of doing, of educating and making sure our kids get the best possible educational experience, is to make sure that those dollars can stay here within our district so we can provide the services and the education that we need for the students, because the students are our products, and if we don't have the dollars to help strengthen our products, then it falls, our businesses fail. So I want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Akbar?
I just want to echo what everyone else has said. Education has been an equalizer in my life as a personal testament, and it is an equalizer in the lives of so many. And you cannot separate educational funding from the task at hand of education of all students. And so when it comes to equity, I see this as an intense attack on the institution that is public schools, in a way to systematically dismantle our public schools. And so I think that this passing the resolution will send a strong message that we as a body stand against any attack of our public schools.
Thank you. Ms. Autry?
Yeah, and just kind of piggybacking on that in terms of the resolution, I think it's important with us being the larger district that we stand in solidarity to the many other school districts across the state who've already passed resolutions in this area.
Thank you. I think you all captured that nicely. This district and this board has long stood in support of public education, and I miss our signs now that used to be around the room that said we stand up for public education. But I think you're exactly right, Dr. Akbar. I think this is an attack on the institution of public education, and it's one of a series of events that we've seen over the last few years that I think is targeted at dismantling public education. And I think it's unfair, as Ms. Mansfield said, to put these in as last-minute things or under the cloak of darkness, like the Youngstown plan, and I do think we need to send a message for whatever that's worth to the people that will make the decision on this, that we stand for public education, and this is not going to help right the ship or turn the trajectory around, as someone said it earlier. So let's do it thoughtfully if we're going to do something in that vein. So thank you for all of those comments. We have a need then to pass this resolution, so I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution opposing the Ed Choice voucher expansion. Any final comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. We are in need of executive session. So pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 120, what do we have?
Committee
Reports, yeah.
Oh, I skipped over committee reports.
You're all excited.
Did I must have scrolled down too far. All right, let me scroll back up
You
here.
wanted to make it a short meeting, that's what it was.
I thought maybe you wouldn't notice. Committee reports, legal contracts, and board policy.
Yes, we have for our third and final reading these first three policies: revised policy 2450, adult and community education; revised policy 5350, student mental health and suicide prevention; revised policy 7440.03, small unmanned aircraft systems; and we have also revised policy 2660.01, Selection 504/ADA, prohibition against discrimination based on disability. And I would ask that we waive the three readings so that we can move forward and pass all four of these policies.
Thank you. Give me 1 second here, please.
Second.
Oh, you have to make
Oh, okay.
Is that,
Gotcha.
for those,
22.7.
I know, but mine have disappeared.
22.7, I think.
Give me 1 second here. going back up. The numbers. The numbers on what he just read. I'm looking for them again.
19.2?
Yeah, it's under
19.2.
Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, so first, because in order to waive the 3 readings, we're going to need, we're going to need a motion
So
on that
moved.
specific one. Well, so we're going to do revised policy 2450, 5350, and 7440.03. So just those 3. Do we have a motion then?
To waive or?
Motion to approve.
Approve, okay.
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second on, again, this is revised policy 2450, 5350, and 7440.03. We have a motion and a second. Any comments, questions, or discussion on those? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
All right, and the policy committee has asked that we waive the the first and second readings, and so pass this on a first reading passage, revised policy 2260.01 on section 504 ADA prohibition against discrimination based on disability. So first, I would like a motion to waive the 3 reading requirement.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second on the waiver of the 3 reading requirement. Any comments, questions, or discussion on that? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you.
And now a motion and a second on the approval of revised policy 2260.01.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on revised policy 2260.01. Any comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Ms. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing those gymnastics with me.
Yep.
Anybody, anything else from legal policy?
That's it.
All right. Finance and capital management?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So Ms. Autry and I are the co-chairs for Finance and Capital Management. And as many of you in the room know, there are, multiple new board members. And so Diana and myself, Ms. Autry and myself are both new. So there were sort of really 5 bullet points, and I'll cover the first couple, and then I'll defer to Ms. Autry to cover the next couple. But the first part, really was about providing an overview to us as new board members, really relating to the history of the Finance Committee, and sort of talking about the types of the subject matter over which we have oversight. And then, so that was sort of the first part of the meeting. And then secondly, we got into the monthly finance report. So we reviewed the November and December financials, their various, components and pieces, parts. And really the main takeaway from that was, what we saw was that any impact from the possible ratification of the AEA contract is something that's going to need to be updated, because again, our forecast had not taken that into account. So there'll be some other, more reporting that's going to have to happen after that. So, Ms. Autry?
And then the other items we talked about, we kind of went into already regarding the Ed Choice vouchers. We just kind of reviewed the financial impact that, it would have on us as a district. And then also we discussed the finance department and accounts receivable. They were recognized today for earning $137,000 in rebates through our credit card services program.
Thank you. Anything else for finance and capital management, or did you have a?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Instructional policy and student achievement?
First, we'd like to express our gratitude to Huntington National Bank, and in particular Nick Browning, and the Huntington National Bank Foundation for being one of our named integrated partners with Bookdale CLC's Academy of Global Industry and Design. They are now our 10th named integrated partner, and we need about 5 more to get all of our high school CLCs with a top-tier integrated partner. So look for more announcements to come in the spring. Secondly, the middle school master planning session had about 80 teachers, principals, students, parents, and community members come together to begin the process of how to transform our middle schools to better align with the college and career academy high schools. Some of the topics included inquiry-based learning, social-emotional learning, school climate, experiential learning, and service learning. And so those teams will be meeting, and they will be continuing to make recommendations to the full board in the spring.
And then in your board docs, we have an update for the Family Resource Centers, which we're in the final stages of coordinating with United Way to officially launch the Resource Center at Helen Arnold. As you can see through the update, we're already offering programming at Helen Arnold while we're scheduling that official launch. I also wanted to point out that again, these are in your board docs now, which makes our agenda accessible, as well as any items you also do still have at your spot. We did do print copies today. We'll see how it goes having it online and having you have access that way. But also you can see the I Promise update. You can also see all of the bits and pieces with college and career academies and the Family Resource Centers through our notes. And Val, did you want to share anything else about the master plan? That's it?
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I neglected to, for the policy committee, that we will be meeting this Wednesday, the 29th at 4:45.
Thank you. Anything else from the committees?
Yeah, I'd like to add one more thing. So we also discussed within finance, that typically that's a monthly meeting, and so, with Ms. Autry and I being new, one of the things that we talked about and sort of agreed to is that we'd be doing bi-weekly meetings. So really, to really accelerate our growth and learning curve around this topic. So it's much of our commitment to not just this board, but also to the public, to ensure that they've got informed board members around the occurrences, from a financial standpoint. So I just want to share that with you all as well.
Thank you. Anything else? Hearing nothing, we do have a couple of items under unfinished business that the superintendent has some updates on, so we'll turn it over to him for the I Promise School Gymnasium and the Resnick sculpture.
Right. These two items actually started last year with the I Promise School Gym. If you recall that LeBron James Family Foundation received $1 million donation from Dick's Sporting Goods last year, and then last week another $1 million pledge from Smuckers for the construction of the gym. So internally as a team, as we've gotten some information from the foundation, we sat down with construction council, and there's a couple of things that we need to put down in writing, so really like a development plan, because for a project that big and going under construction, remember the I Promise School is year-round. So during construction, we will have an occupied building. Our Paladina Health Clinic also operates from that location. There are some questions about builder's risk insurance and its placement, the performance bond and its placement. And so we're working with construction council to put those items in a document that will work with the foundation to get that signed off on before construction actually begins. So we're really excited about the gym addition because it is sorely needed there, but we also need some, some additional work just in terms of making sure everyone's on the same page, how the building's going to attach to the existing building, how we're going to maintain site access for the number of buses that come in and out of there every day, and how clients and patients at Paladina are going to have access, because that's the side of the building where the gym is supposed to be constructed. So I'll come back. I'm not asking for approval for that tonight, but I will be coming back before any construction starts to make sure that you all are on the same page and you feel comfortable with that construction ongoing. The second one, last year, I also, and we had a visitor to our board meeting, Mr. Tamarios, about a sculpture he would like to see placed at Resnick, where we had removed Rotania. This would be dedication to Judy Resnick and Jean Hickson. As Mr. Tamarios spoke at that meeting, Jean Hickson was a woman who trained as a Mercury astronaut but never got to go into space. So he has a replica of a Mercury capsule. I'd like to put 2 bronze statues there. One of the hiccups was a Dominion gas line, which they're replacing right along the front of Resnick. Mr. Tamarios, being resourceful as he is, worked with a vice president at Dominion, so they're going to change the direction of the line a little bit so that it has a little dog leg, which would allow the installation of the sculpture. We have some work to do with that because we have to get actually a final plan. And in both cases, with the I Promise Gym and this, those would have to go through the city approval process. So I'll come back with additional information, but I just wanted to make sure that you were okay with me proceeding with both projects in terms of making sure we get the plans that we need and have all your questions answered, and nothing will start until we actually come back to board with a final plan for each project.
Thank you. Any comments, questions, or discussion for the superintendent on either of those items, Ms. Mansfield?
Well, I remember we saw some rendering of what the gym was possibly going to look like, but there wasn't a final
Right, exactly.
positioning. Will that be one of the things you bring back?
Oh, absolutely, because from what we saw initially in terms of the elevations of the gym design, that's changed from one of the later renditions, and also based on conversations with the county building department and the city, there's a sewer line that runs on the property, and that gym has to be moved. So I think there are some additional details that have to be worked out, which is why I think we need to have a development agreement which outlines some of those items so that we're comfortable before shovels go into the ground.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, we do have new business as well. We already covered the resolution opposing the voucher program, but we have 31.1 College Credit Plus MOUs.
Yes, Mr. President, I wish to recommend that the board authorize the superintendent treasurer, myself and Mr. Pendleton, to sign the College Credit Plus Memoranda of Understanding for the University of Akron, Kent State University, Stark State College, and Lorraine Community College. This is an annual memorandum that comes out so our students can participate in College Credit Plus. And all 4 of those agreements, the funding is at the floor, so it's $43 or $44 per credit hour, I believe.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the College Credit Plus MOUs. Are there any comments, questions, or discussion?
Yeah, I actually have a question. So with respect to Lorraine County Community College, what is the projected sort of utilization of students for that community college? So we're talking like 50 students go here, 100 go to Stark State, 100 go to Kent, 200 go to Akron. Like, I'm just curious, how many students actually choose Lorraine, or what do we think would choose Lorraine?
We don't have a lot of students. In the past, when we first started College Credit Plus, we have had students choose Lorraine, and they can do distance learning, as well. I think the majority of our students are University of Akron and Stark State, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So were these chosen because of the programs they offered, or or was it more? I guess I was trying to understand the rationale.
The choice of College Credit Plus is really totally up to the student and their family. So we could have a student who says they want Lorraine Community College. I doubt it, but we have had, I think, 1 or 2 in the past. Majority of them are local universities.
So why wouldn't Cleveland State be on here, for example?
Cleveland State did not submit a memorandum of understanding to Akron. That's not up to us. It's the college that does that.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes,
So
Ms. Autry?
I noticed that Kent State's MOU was significantly longer than the other groups, like 23 pages. I mean, is there any like main things that sticks out why that one would be so much?
No, I mean, from the beginning, theirs has always been the longest. I think it depends on the legal department at each instance. I think Stark is the thinnest one
Like
of
3
all of
pages.
them, but they basically all say pretty much the same thing. There might be some procedures about how to access the online version of courses versus in person.
Good question. Any other comments, questions, or discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Abstain.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Now, unless I have scrolled too far again, we are in need of executive session pursuant to Revised Code Section 121.22G4 to review negotiations or bargaining sessions with employees concerning compensation and other terms and conditions of employment, and Revised Code Section 122.22G5 for the purpose of considering matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes. Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything final before we recess into executive session? Hearing nothing, roll call, please.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Mrs. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mrs. McKittrick?
Yes.
Dr. Akbar?
Yes.
Mr. Alexander?
Yes.
Ms. Autry?
Yes.
Mr. Bravo?
Yes. And we do have items for approval, so we will be returning after executive session.